So would I prefer to have the iPad or something else in each of these different use cases? My hypothesis, my idea behind this video is that the iPad is the best all-rounder, but for each individual use, there is probably something better. So I'm going to compare it to something else in each of these different categories. This is literally the iPad versus everything else. So if this video is a bit too long for what you want, then check out this video, which is just my conclusions as to whether the iPad is the best all-rounder, but not the best at any individual thing. And at any point, let me know in the comments if you disagree with my conclusion for each individual category, or if you think there's something else which is better at that specific job. So I'm Kit, and I'm an education professional, and this is my opinion based on having used the iPad for a number of years now for my own teaching, and tried out loads of different options for teaching and my day-to-day professional life, including my video editing and multimedia stuff here for YouTube. I've been trying out these ideas for a little while now, but let me know what you think. Let's go. Writing. There's just something about typing on a good quality laptop keyboard or full desktop keyboard. And for me, for writing down or developing ideas, pen and paper or e-ink tablets isn't quite matched by the Apple Pencil and the iPad. It's more of a pleasure to use a real pen and paper. It's true what they say that you write from your heart when you write with pen and paper, and you write from your head when you write with a keyboard. And neither of the ways of inputting text on the iPad are nearly as good as proper pen and paper or a proper keyboard. So the iPad isn't going to beat out traditional pen and paper or a keyboard. So I think if you get an iPad, you'll still find yourself using pen and paper or something with a keyboard to do those two writing tasks. Scribble is great, but I find it surprisingly inaccurate compared to some other devices' character recognition. And that glass screen, even with the Paperlike screen protector, is not the same as writing with a real pen and paper. The smart keyboard is fine, but it's not a replacement for a real keyboard. It wouldn't be comfortable for hours of typing. Yeah, secret option number 3 is voice recognition. It's fine, but it's a bit too chatty. We say things differently to how we write them, and for good reason. And the full Office apps are better for voice recognition. So the writing category is going to go to a laptop. For making art on the iPad is amazing. Digital art on the iPad is amazing. And that's the key point. Digital art is amazing on the iPad, but art is so much more than that. If you're serious about art, you will soon outgrow drawing with the Apple Pencil. What I mean by that is for drawing, it doesn't get better really than a range of soft pencils. For painting, nothing looks better than oils. Yeah, digital art can make a really nice effect and it looks okay on screen. But the thing about art is it should give you a real tangible feeling. If this category had been what's best for digital art, then maybe the iPad could be the winner because it's so portable and it's so good for drawing on. But if you were used to traditional media already, then there's going to be quite a steep learning curve to switch to drawing on the iPad. That being said, if your first experience of drawing was with digital art, then you'd feel right at home on the iPad. And I'm going to be honest, if you're a real digital artist, you probably are going to look at something like a Wacom or XP Pen, digital drawing pad, or pen screen like this one. Don't get me wrong, if you love drawing and you love digital art, then you're going to get on really well with the iPad. It's a fantastic tool for making art. There's a definite place for it, but it's only going to take you so far. If you love painting on your iPad, be kind to yourself and buy yourself a set of watercolors. So for this category, I'm going to give it to traditional art media. For Office documents then. Now this is closer than I thought it would be. When I first got an iPad, I presumed I would struggle to access all the files I needed for my work. But the MS Office apps are so good on the iPad. And because everything can be accessed through OneDrive, it's actually really easy to integrate that with your work files. iPads are hugely powerful now, and because of the USB-C interface, it can work with loads more than before. The only thing holding it back is the operating system. But still, the laptop has to take this category, and there are 3 reasons. You can use peripheries like extra screens, printers, and anything that a computer can work with. You've got full apps, and you've got Explorer windows. It's just still easy to work with files on a computer. If only the iPad would give you a proper extended desktop and a proper file explorer. The tech is still there, but because it's a mobile operating system, it's still just that, a mobile device. That being said, the majority of document types that you actually work with are all there. Maybe you need to mark up papers and send them back or review edits, then that's really good on the iPad. The screen resolution is really high for reading, and the Apple Pencil is probably the best stylus tech that there is. And the iPad can integrate with just about any apps that your team uses. But I'm still going to give this, for office work, it's got to be a laptop. for planning. I tried my best to use my iPad as a digital planner, and I did really like it. But being that I was for many years happy planning on paper, I was essentially just using the iPad as a notebook, and it was a notepad that I had to charge every single day. Sure, I need to use a digital calendar and the iPad will let me do that, but I can and I do already do that on my phone, so it's just extra. Sure, I could get into workflow and organization apps, and there are many really good ones, but to be honest, all I really need is somewhere to jot down my ideas of what I'm supposed to do at that minute in that day, so I don't need to do that on an LCD screen, thanks. For me, e-ink tablets are the perfect balance of digital and traditional. Your stuff is backed up to the cloud, you can have basically unlimited pages and no extra weight. And you won't forget which notebook you wrote something down in. And all the while, your eyes get this nice screen break, which is getting more and more important to me. Perhaps Apple could use this space on the back for a nice e-paper display. And all you'd have to do is to flip it over and get all the benefits of e-ink screens. You could have it set to be your planner or flip it and it would just be a mirror of the same screen. Problem with that idea would be the increase in price because e-ink screens simply aren't cheap and it's still a pretty niche use. But for me, for planning, I'm going to give this category to e-ink tablets. Next up, multimedia consumption. The iPad screen is pretty darn good now. It's got high resolution and a great max brightness. It's not quite OLED, but it is a nice screen. But look, it's not going to compare with a large 4K screen TV for watching stuff on. And the speakers aren't bad either for a small device, but compared to a 5.1 sound system on a TV, it's no contest. It's best to use a pair of headphones, really. Let's say it's best for watching stuff on a train. All this being said, for casually browsing the internet or for flicking through YouTube, the iPad is really good, but because it's a touchscreen, you do have compromises. Just be sure to have a screen cloth with you to wipe off any fingerprints when you're ready to watch something. Also, another compromise is that to get the best feel for using the Apple Pencil with the iPad screen, a lot of us use a matte screen protector, and that does make it not quite as good for watching things on. So unsurprisingly, for just an entertainment platform, well, TVs are the best TVs. But if it's the only thing you had to watch stuff on, it'd still be really good. Next is for multimedia production. It's become an absolute powerhouse in recent years. You can edit 4K video quite happily on it. And if you use a keyboard, you can get keyboard shortcuts in your favorite editor too. For editing photos, it's great too, apart from that point about the fingerprints. And all the Adobe apps like Lightroom, Photoshop, they're great. They're pretty much full apps now, and the Apple Pencil works really well with them too. The problem is screen real estate. As soon as they let you do a proper extended desktop, it'll solve this, and then it'll be much closer. But on a desktop PC, for multimedia editing, you've got all this extra screen real estate if you want it. I'm amazed at how close this category really is. It's really amazing that something so tiny can come as close to a full desktop experience, but it is. Apple Silicon is really good and it's been designed to do that multimedia stuff really, really well. One of the biggest downsides is still the storage. I mean, this is a 512 gigabyte model and a few 4K videos worth of raw footage will fill that up. And even the 2 terabyte model, which costs a lot, would be full pretty quick as well. And the base model is 64 gigabyte now, but still that's not going to cut it for video editing or photos. I'm just not going to give up this setup with all these peripheries for something this size. Yet with that USB-C interface, you could have somewhere near this. They allowed you to do that extended desktop and add in all the peripheries at the same time. And still, let's face it, raw CPU clock speed, GPU is still not coming close to what you can get at a similar price in a desktop. That extra RAM and expandable storage still gives the desktop the edge. For collaboration now. When you need to work on a team, you need to work on a large number of files. You need to be able to work across a large number of different apps simultaneously. The iPad can handle all the apps and all the files, but switching between them isn't slick. Probably some of you will tell me in the comments that actually do this really well, and once you get used to the shortcuts, it is really easy to navigate between apps and files. And it might well just be that I'm so used to using a PC that I'm not so efficient on the iPad. Still though, if I'm collaborating on something and I need to simultaneously have a chat and File Explorer, maybe a video call and 2 or 3 Word documents or Excel sheets on the go at any one point, that's just the nature of collaboration. And the minimum I might want would be a laptop with a keyboard and mouse and an extended desktop. I know that you can now use a mouse on the iPad, but how many of us do? For collaboration, I'm going to have to give it to a laptop. Lastly, for teaching. Now, if you've watched any of my videos recently, you'll know that I'm a teacher and that I've been really surprised at how good the iPad is for teaching. Tried out the iPad and I've concluded that the iPad and Apple Pencil is the best thing for teaching. Certainly the best value. My students love it when I teach on the iPad for several reasons. I sit at the front of my class and I look at them as I build up these notes on the iPads, which they see being constructed on the big screen behind me. As I construct those explanations, they follow what I do in real time. The things that I'm saying are really closely linked to the things that I'm drawing or writing. It's a really good way for them to code new information into their brains, and it's really very comfortable. I model the way that I want their work set out, as they are going to do it with a pen and paper or on their own iPads. And because I take all these notes in OneNote, they can actually access that same collaboration note in their Microsoft Teams. And so they can revisit that at any time. At the starts of new lessons and new learning, I can just skip back and recap things that we've gone over, and they can see the notes that we made together that they ask questions about and we discuss. And it sort of reloads that information ready to be built on in the new learning. They actually really loved that, going back and recapping over the stuff they'd already done. It made them really confident that they did know what they were talking about. And this is all their words, not mine. I asked them what they liked about my teaching that year, and they said they really loved when I used the iPad. It just made it a really comfortable way to construct new information for them. You know, maybe there's something about that, maybe it's a little bit too comfortable, a little bit too easy for them, a little bit too relaxed. But a relaxed teaching environment is quite nice, where kids feel they can test things out and make mistakes and ask interesting questions. They said that it was good because you developed ideas more in conversation rather than in a PowerPoint where you kind of plan to say one thing after another and you can't detract from that when new ideas come up. With a PowerPoint, you're gonna say the next line next. You're gonna put the next slide on because you've planned it that way. So it becomes a really rigid mode of teaching, and they really like the flexibility that using this iPad afforded. So you could, with a standard teacher setup, show a PowerPoint and annotate it on the whiteboard, but there's something about having to turn your back to a class when you make annotations that doesn't make for a very comfortable environment, and it doesn't lend itself to very calm environments either. The ability to maintain eye contact and hold people's attention is really valuable, and there's something that the iPad really lets you do. One more thing which is fantastic for teaching on an iPad is that you can stream wirelessly to whiteboards, and so you can move around the class and actually still be making notes and annotating and discussing at any time whilst you're walking around your class. Most new display screens at the front of classrooms, they come with Apple TV built in, or Air Server, or some equivalent app, so you can actually wirelessly share your screen to the front of the class. And of course, the iPad is great for seamlessly teaching online, and I'm going to do a full video about teaching online with the iPad coming soon. So the category that the iPad wins is teaching. So in conclusion, I'm surprised about how bad the iPad did, but I'm also surprised at how close each category was. The only other thing which won 2 categories was a laptop, and I suppose that's why they're really targeting the iPad at replacing a laptop, but it's just not there yet. And it's not the physical tech, it's not the hardware, it's the operating system which is keeping it from actually replacing that laptop. For me, iOS wants to have a mode which can switch it to more like a Mac OS experience. Maybe they need to blur the boundary between iPad and Mac. iPad users are clamoring for this to happen. They're clamoring for it to run full Mac OS, or at least have the full Mac OS apps actually running on it, because it's more than capable. Now with the iPad Pro running the M1 chip, it's the same computer essentially as an iMac or a MacBook Pro. So why not let users have that power so they could edit on full Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere and work with dual screens on multiple apps, and then when they're done, just disconnect the USB-C, pick up the same machine and read a magazine on the sofa, or watch a few YouTube clips, or even take it out into nature and sketch on it, or sit in a cafe with a cup of coffee and answer their emails. So in conclusion, there is something better for just about every job, but if you can only have one thing, I think the iPad is better than anything else. I hope that helped. If you want more iPad related for teaching videos, then check these ones out here.